Firstly, based off of what we're expressly told in-game, it could actually be possible. All we really know is that Bonnie ended up going into Monty Golf around 4 AM, and then that was the last place he was seen. Quote from the duffel bag, security report, 12:24 AM. Bonnie is seen leaving his green room in Rockstar Row heading east towards the atrium. 2:40 AM, Bonnie enters the East Arcade. 4:12 AM, Bonnie enters Monty Golf. That's the last of a repaired Bonnie that we ended up seeing, since in another bag we learned, quote, with Bonnie out of commission, we are making Monty the new bass player. Parts and service has already done the proper adjustments. This could be a good thing. Monty could be even more popular than Bonnie. Which, in combination to the fact that Bonnie was last seen in Monty Golf, suggests that Monty is the culprit behind Bonnie's destruction. Which is odd, in my opinion, because like we know Monty loves smashing things, so like that's not the weird part about this. My thought is, where was Monty chilling before he moved into Rockstar Row? Like, we don't see any real living quarters in Monty Golf, and the only other animatronics that we see outside of the core 4 is the daycare attendant, who has his own room above the ball pit. So, where could Monty have been staying if not in Rockstar Row? Anyway, if Monty is to blame for the destruction of Bonnie, we could see Bonnie come back in the DLC. But unfortunately, it wouldn't be really to get revenge on Monty, since we see that Monty does indeed face justice. At least, justice if he was guilty for the crimes. And if not, then it was just destruction. There is another theory, however, that could counter this point if it's true. The idea that Glamrock Bonnie's endo was used to create the new body that Afton inhabits in the true ending, Burn Trap. Now, we've covered this in another video, link to that is in the iCard, but in that video we came to the conclusion that the entire endo wasn't used, since the shoulders on Burn Trap aren't wide enough compared to the male Glamrock endos. And the fact that Afton's muscle fibers, or nerves, again, still not quite sure what they are still connected, would prove that it's the old suit. But there are sections where the fibers are blocked, like on the left foot and left arm. Both things that he was missing, or were more damaged at the time, while in his scrap trap form. Seemingly suggesting that perhaps these specific parts came from Glamrock Bonnie instead of the whole endoskeleton. Maybe they were the only parts that they could use after Monty had his fun, maybe they cut Monty off from destroying the rest of him, hence why he starts smashing his green room. We're not sure, and frankly the latter is just speculation, but it's still interesting. Originally, I was against the whole Glamrock Bonnie endoskeleton thing because, well, frankly, the body in the suit kind of disproved it for me. But I think I might have found a way to make it work. Like I said, looking at the model, I'm still not 100% sure. But if this was the Glamrock Bonnie endo, again, it would need to have broader shoulders, and actually it would need to be shorter. Unless they're like using the female endo for Bonnie, which wouldn't really make sense, so I don't think that they would, especially if they're gonna give Bonnie shoulder pads. But I mean, like, even if we scale them so they're the same height, the endos, when posed the same way, and I'm comparing to like an actual endo, not the Glamrock Bonnie fan art, they still don't line up. And I mean, there are similarities between the two, of course, but there aren't enough where I can even call this above 50%. There are also issues of, again, the muscles being woven throughout the body. If it was just the head, I would understand, since they could have just put the old head on a new endo body, but with the muscles throughout the rest of the endo, that's too intricate to have been placed there. Even if they were, they would be dangling. They would just be hanging out, unless they had been stuck there like with super glue. Because like they were deep in there, because you know, he was shoved full of machine parts. So yeah, if Afton was going to transfer his head to a new endo, it wouldn't come with the rest of the body bits. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with they added the arm and the leg on after the fact. But what would that mean for Glamrock Bonnie? Well, it would mean that if decommissioning Bonnie was a part of Vanny's plan to resurrect Afton, there would really be no Bonnie available that you could bring back. since he would really just be decommissioned. And while the other animatronics do come back, losing a leg and an arm is worse than your legs, your eyes, or just being smashed, since he wouldn't really be able to hop around on one leg despite being a bunny, and since he only had one arm, he wouldn't really be able to crawl like Monty does. So, I mean, I suppose the DLC could instead just be replacing Monty with Glamrock Bonnie, but that's achievable with mods, so there isn't really a point to making that a paid DLC, since we would all just opt into modding the game for that experience. Plus, certainly the model they use for Bonnie wouldn't end up being the one added to the mod instead of the current one. So at this point, we'd need a solid DLC to actually make it worth it. With that being said, however, Bonnie being decommissioned might actually impact his presence in the game, but not to the story, since the DLC could be, like I've suggested before in other videos, a series of missions that involve us investigating his disappearance, possibly as a favor to Freddy, since he really seemed to miss Bonnie. Like, he was pretty sad when he was saying that there's no bunny in this pizzaplex, not anymore. That was my Freddy impression. Maybe it would even be because Freddy was already investigating it or something like that, saying that he knows Monty's been giving him side-eye and wanted to know if that Monty would be coming after Freddy next, since after all, Monty is stronger than Freddy, at least until we break Monty's brains in with a giant bucket filled with balls, which is a total hazard, by the way. I mean, like, come on. The giant bucket that we use to crush Monty is such a issue for health and safety for both employees and for customers. Because, like, if a 6-year-old kid with a 4-year-old's body can use it to destroy an animatronic, how safe is it going to be for literally anyone else? Like, what's the point of the bucket anyway? Like, is it supposed to contain water? Because, like, when it falls on Monty, it breaks the catwalk that we're on. And honestly, water, especially in that quantity, is going to be a lot heavier than some ball pit balls filled with air. Seriously, who the living hell thought that this was going to be a good idea? Or like, how have they not gotten fined for it yet? Or like, how have they not fixed it if they have gotten fined? Yeah, there are guardrails on the catwalk, but that doesn't matter if there's a giant bucket that can destroy the catwalk that you're standing on and then cause you to fall to your death. Especially when falling that distance just like severed Monty's legs from his torso. Anyway, sorry, rant aside, maybe once Freddy has Monty's hands, we're able to investigate the rest of what happened to Bonnie. Maybe we get into Monty's green room and then kind of like suss out what went wrong. And no, that was not an Among Us joke, despite me constantly making Among Us jokes about this game because Gregory is sus, he vented. But like, maybe in the end, we would find Bonnie's casing with a missing arm and a missing leg, and then we would know for certain that I'm right. Now, do I think that this is going to happen? Really? I'm not sure. Like, a lot of people seemingly want to see Bonnie in this game, so much so that they are replacing Monty using mods, but also the idea for the Choose Your Guardian DLC is also very popular, and perhaps even more popular than the others. However, since we know DLCs to be canon add-ons, I'm guessing that a Bonnie investigation would be more likely than switching up the robot who protects us, since honestly, the whole Bonnie thing has less lore implications in the long run. Having someone other than Freddy protect us just seems like it would be too messy, especially with the fact that we would have to steal the other bits from the animatronics, and if we pick Roxy, then we have her eyes the entire game, which is kind of cheating. But like, you know, you get it? You do understand what I mean here? Like, I like the idea, but it's probably just gonna have to be a mod instead of actual canon DLC, okay? I hate to say it, even though I say it every time I talk about this mod.
Number 10, the Roxy connection. Because everyone loves the animatronics in FNAF so much, it should come as no surprise that people even ship them together sometimes. What is shipping? Well, for those who don't know, shipping characters means that you are imagining what it would be like if they dated or were in a relationship. Relationship being the key word from where the term ship comes from. Some fans who ship Foxy and Bonnie together as a couple have even suggested that Roxy is their animatronic daughter. Of course, Foxy and Bonnie are both often referred to as being male animatronics, but they are also well, animatronics, which means that you could combine pretty much any two animatronics together regardless of their gender identity or lack thereof, and create something new if you so wish. Perhaps Roxy was more literally even made from parts which came from both Bonnie and Foxy, which is how I'd imagine creating an animatronic's offspring would work in FNAF, although that does imply that Foxy and Bonnie may have even had to die for Roxy to live. Pretty dark. Number 9. Montgomery Gator is the new Bonnie. When it comes to who is who in terms of character replacements, this one might seem a little on the nose, but it's still important to note. Montgomery is obviously meant to be the new Bonnie in the games. This isn't just because Roxanne matches up more neatly with taking over Foxy's place, which a lot of people have referred to due to their similar appearance. It's also because of Montgomery versus Bonnie's place in the band as lead guitarist. It seems as though Montgomery is filling in that position in the band, but also in the games in general. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want some more security breach theories, perhaps regarding specific characters, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Montgomery is the old Bonnie. We're being led to believe that security breach takes place during present day, 2021 or 2020. But what if that just isn't true? What if security breach actually takes place during a different time period? The 80s style of the game cannot be ignored. But the question is this some future trend 80s style where retro is made new again? Or does part of, or potentially all of the game actually take place during the 80s and we've been led astray by the clues that we've gotten so far? Is this some kind of weird misdirect? And if it does take place in the 80s, is it possible that Montgomery was only a temporary replacement for Bonnie who later rejoined the group afterwards? Perhaps because something bad happened either to or with Montgomery that got him removed from the group and dismantled, something that perhaps that game will explore. Number 7. Surprise Bonnie! Another theory is that Bonnie isn't actually left out of the game at all, it's just that they were simply not in the trailer. Instead of Bonnie being a character that we'll never see, they are simply a character who hasn't shown up yet but will eventually. Instead of Bonnie being a featured character, that might be an Easter egg or some kind of animatronic surprise that is waiting around the corner to meet us. Anyone see that bowling alley? That could be all the Bonnie we get, honestly. Although it is important to note, just because we haven't seen neither tail nor ears of Bonnie as an animatronic doesn't mean they aren't just lurking somewhere in the game behind the scenes. Perhaps they aren't in the main band, but instead are relegated to their own super secret attraction, or perhaps they're just chilling at the bowling alley and we just haven't seen them yet. Number 6. Time traveling Bonnie. What if Bonnie is in the game but giving away just how they showed up would ruin the story for the fans? I've long been wondering if the entirety of Security Breach actually does take place in the present day. After all, we do see a ball pit in the trailer, and fans who have also read the Fazbear Frights books know that the main mention of a ball pit in that series involved time travel. It was a time traveling ball pit. Is it possible that this ball pit could also allow us to time travel, but instead of going to the dingy and grimy Jeff's Pizza, it takes us back in time to another Freddy's location, perhaps even the same location we are in the present, but as it was originally back in the 80s? Is it possible that through time traveling to the past, we could see Bonnie featured in the game, perhaps even a newer version of Bonnie than we're used to seeing, although a newer version to us, but still a version from the past? Does that make sense? We could even still see Bonnie glam rocked out for all we know. Number 5. Glam Rock Bonnie. There are theories that Glam Rock Bonnie does exist, but simply has been cut out of the trailer. Why? Well, we don't really know. But perhaps it's because showing Glam Rock Bonnie would give too much away in terms of the gameplay or the story. It's possible that Glam Rock Bonnie is either directly operating as our ally, or perhaps is tucked away in an area of the game that to show us would basically ruin the whole thing. Glam Rock Bonnie could exist though, and perhaps could even have been temporarily taken out of service, which might even be why Montgomery Gator is there to begin with. With human bands, there are times when you might see a band with rotating bandmates as some get pulled into other projects. In this case, it could be because Bonnie is just glitching out, so maybe Bonnie's out for now but will be back? Number 4. Vanny is the new Bonnie. What if Bonnie is actually being replaced by another non-animatronic? Oh, Vanny. Matt Pat has theorized in the past that Security Breach will be a sort of passing of the torch to a new cast of characters, introducing both new humans and animatronics who could be allies or enemies, or even protagonists. If this is true, then it seems likely that Vanny could be the new Bonnie. After all, both are rabbits and both are antagonists. This would mean, however, sadly, no more Bonnie for us, as that that role is already filled. Sad. Unless of course something even more sinister is going on when it comes to who might be taking over the role of everyone's favorite animatronic bunny bandmate. Number 3. Bonnie becomes Glitch Trap. We've all focused on the fact that Glitch Trap is looking for a human host just based on what seems to be implied with him needing or wanting Gregory for some yet unknown purpose. A lot of people assume that Glitch Trap will try to possess Gregory and use him as a host, but does this really make sense? After all, if you were going to take over anyone as an adult, would you really choose to become a child? I mean, being a child was cool and all, but children aren't really able to do as much as adults are because they don't have permission from either their parents or the government. There would be a lot that you couldn't do simply because you just weren't old enough yet, or even because you might not physically be capable of that yet. So why would Glitch Trap want Gregory for this purpose? It's more likely to me that Bonnie is actually the intended host, and Glitch Trap plans or perhaps has already moved into an animatronic and taken hold of it. The fact that Bonnie isn't seen in the trailer could mean that Bonnie is the one who will show up as the new main antagonist, fully possessed by Glitch Trap. And we'll get a big reveal of this, which is why Bonnie doesn't show up, so as not to ruin that big reveal. Number 2. Nightmare Bonnie? What if the hand at the end is actually Bonnie, or at least a version of Bonnie? Some have theorized that this could be William returning as either an endo version of Bonnie, or perhaps as Nightmare Bonnie, even more frightening. This would also make sense if this was the direction the game and story decided to go in, considering that before he retired, Scott Cawthon was working on Security Breach. Scott has always said the animatronic that scares him the most is Bonnie, so it would make sense that Bonnie would end up as one of the most scary characters that we have in this game, William Afton. Number 1. Bunnies are bad. One theory suggests that Bonnie might not appear at all in this game because Fazbear Entertainment's Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex is actually part of a soft reboot of the entire franchise. So, why wasn't Bonnie invited to this party? Because Bonnie is a bunny. And considering that Springtrap was the one behind the murders with William Afton wearing that suit, causing the incidents that had the location shut down in the first place, and basically made them go bankrupt, it would make sense for them to feel that it might just be best to stay away from all the bunny animatronics in general, just to be safe and make everyone feel more at ease. However, that probably still won't end up working out so well for them, as we know that Vanny and Glitch Trap are likely going to be causing a bunch of mayhem still in this game, and they're also both bunny figures. Yikes.
And a 10. Springtrap. It seems weird to me that Springtrap isn't Fred Trap. Like, why would William use a Spring Bonnie suit instead of a Spring Freddy, the mascot of the company? Maybe Bonnie is a more popular animatronic despite not being front and center, or maybe it's because using Golden Freddy would bring too much attention because he is the mascot of the company. Maybe both. I don't know. But in-universe reasons aside, I think I know why this is the case in our world. It's common knowledge by now that Scott Cawthon, while developing FNAF 1, was given nightmares after being jump-scared by Bonnie during the playtest of the first game. This didn't happen with any other animatronic, so Scott ended up finding Bonnie to be the scariest. Maybe that's why Afton chose it, because Scott wanted the last game of the series to be scarier. Then before you get mad, in an interview, Scott Cawthon said that FNAF 3 was planned to be the end of the series, so Springtrap would have been burnt, and that's why the puppet was there on some rare screens. However, the community was disappointed with the Springtrap jump scare, and that's why he made FNAF 4, and then 5, 6, 7, and 8. Since Scott thought Bonnie was the scariest though, it only makes sense for the killer to use the suit in the intended final game. But I can't be sure because I've never talked to Scott. Like, Scott, hit me up though. Let's chat. And at 9, Bonnie run run run. Bonnie run 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 faster than my Foxy. Oh god. It's actually interesting though, since in the original FNAF 1 trailer, we never see Foxy or Pirate's Cove for that matter, and the only running animatronic is Bonnie. I find this odd because, well, why wasn't Foxy there? Myself and others think that perhaps it was because he wasn't added. You see, as you playtest the game, you find balancing issues and bugs that you need to fix, and as of this trailer, perhaps the game was too difficult with a giant bunny that was always sprinting at you, or perhaps it was too frequent or it was causing issues. So in an effort to balance the game or make it scarier, Scott added Foxy and Pirate's Cove to make Bonnie less overpowered. I mean, other than Bonnie, only Foxy comes down that hall if you let him. It was also probably a way to fix the just never opening the camera strategy that Foxy does end up preventing, and in Ultimate Custom Night, the two animatronics that you can see in Pirate's Cove are Bonnie and Foxy. Interesting. Also guys, if you're enjoying the video, be sure you hit like and subscribe for more videos like this because, you know, the algorithm hates everyone and it lets us know what you want to see more of. And at 8, Easter Bonnie. The Easter Bonnie animatronic from FNAF AR is something that we never really understood. Like, why did Fazbear Entertainment create an Easter version of Bonnie? Like, I get that it's a riff on the Easter Bunny, but do they use this when the place opens around Easter? Because like, if not, it just seems like a waste. I have an idea though. What if they're using it to try to take over holidays? Think about it. I know it sounds outlandish, but I mean, like, Fine Bros tried to trademark the word react, so. They also have multiple holidays represented with special animatronics. Easter Bonnie and Chocolate Bonnie, Liberty Chica and Firework Freddy, Katrina Toy Chica, Heartsick Baby and Blackheart Bonnie, Shamrock Freddy. There's even an unused Easter Chica, for crying out loud. That's 4 separate holidays that Fazbear animatronics have no business in, with animatronics representing them. Like, why? Like, I feel, personally, like Fazbear Entertainment is the FNAF universe's Disney. Like, they want to literally own everything, and this includes the holidays. They want $1 every time someone wears green on St. Patty's Day. Every time someone ends up in a dumpster drunk on St. Patty's, they want a nickel. I'm not speaking from experience. Every time a kid finds an Easter egg, it has to have a token for Freddy Fazbear's inside. That's what this company wants. A total, absolute monopoly. And you know what? They're close. They really are. And at 7, Toy Bonnie. The FNAF 2 toy animatronics are pretty interesting. They're meant to be able to access criminal databases to detect predators and killers so that another missing children's incident doesn't happen. However, they attack us even though we haven't done anything wrong, at least to our knowledge. But remember, these animatronics are meant to protect kids, not adults. And as of night 7 in FNAF 2, we play as someone who looks exactly like the one who caused the missing children's incident. But I don't think that's what's happening here. I think these animatronics were intentionally flawed so that they would get scrapped. And look, that's exactly what happens. Why do I think this? Well, who made them? William Afton. We know this because he is the suit technician we hear about in FNAF 3, and we see him helping someone into a Golden Freddy suit in FNAF 4's 8-bit minigames. So William was the one who made these animatronics, and he's also the one who caused the missing children's incident. So if these characters were meant to detect him, wouldn't he want them to just attack every adult so that they would end up being deemed defective, and then he would have another killing ground again? I mean, like, it makes sense to me. He could have just not programmed himself in, but honestly, that would probably be even more work, so he might as well make them horrible. Sounds easier. And at 6, similar to Freddy. Last time I talked about how some fans think that Bonnie's face was remade using Freddy's as a template, hence why they look slightly similar. However, this time I want to discuss how not only their faces look similar, but how the rest of them does as well. Looking at the animatronics, each have a bow tie and no buttons, whereas no other animatronic in the first game has a bow tie or tie of any kind for that matter, unlike yours truly. They also have a similar body type, with their original versions basically being identical. And we know that Bonnie is meant to be blue, however this original version looks to be more purple than blue, which did confuse some people at the beginning. But if Bonnie was just a Freddy animatronic with different ears, that would explain the color difference between the original and the toy version. From what I understand about colors and how subtractive colors work, subtractive being when you subtract light from colors when adding them instead of adding it like you do on a computer, blue over Freddy's brown would result in the purplish color we see original Bonnie have. And I mean, like, if they already had another Freddy animatronic, it would be cheaper just to recolor it. So is Bonnie more than a Freddy face clone? And are they more alike than we first thought? Probably. I mean, it would save a lot of money. Halfway through in at number 5, leader. Sure, the place is called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, but is Freddy the actual leader of the group? Sure, he's the one who's front and center and singing all the kids' favorite tunes, but he hardly does anything in the game. And he was originally going to do even less, only sticking around on the stage and scaring you if you ran out of power. And he was also hardly in the trailer for the first game. The trailer really featured Bonnie more, and honestly, so do the games. Bonnie's the first animatronic to typically make a move towards you on each night. And Bonnie has quite a few versions as well, with 22 different versions in his own right, including the FNAF AR Springtrap and Plushtrap skins. And Bonnie is the other animatronic that got introduced with a shadow version in FNAF 2. So is this giant bunny more than meets the eye? Is this like a Puppet Master scenario where Bonnie is manipulating Freddy to get what he wants? I mean, like, the main killer does use a Bonnie suit after all. In at 4, Withered Bonnie. We assume that the withered animatronics are just decommissioned versions of the original 5 animatronics that were then improved for the opening of the FNAF 1 location. However, if that was the case, wouldn't they have found bodies inside those animatronics? In addition to that, look at FNAF 1 Bonnie in comparison to Withered Bonnie. Besides the missing face, do you notice anything different? That's right. Buttons. Withered Bonnie has 2 buttons on his chest, whereas FNAF 1 Bonnie doesn't. So how would these be the same animatronic? I guess you could say that they removed the buttons, but the bow tie also just seems off. And as we can tell from the FNAF VR parts and service minigames, the bow tie is a part of the animatronic, not like an actual bow tie that can be easily changed. Sure, this one is withered, but withered obviously in this context means partially destroyed. So why would buttons stick around only to later be removed? If they're on there after that, they're on there good. It just doesn't make sense to me. Also, the whole they would have found bodies in there, unless Afton was the one attending to them, but I mean, there would have at least been someone else helping. It's not like he would have done it all by himself. Unless maybe he did, I don't know. Getting close to the end in at number 3, Rockstar Bonnie. Now what's really confusing to me is Rockstar Bonnie. Introduced in FNAF 6, Rockstar Bonnie was in essence just an excuse to make more versions of animatronics for merch reasons. At least I feel that way. But Rockstar Bonnie looks like more than that, since it has a similar style to the FNAF 1 and Withered Bonnies combined, along with 2 extra toes. But what does this mean? Well, some assume that this meant it was the real repaired version of Withered Bonnie, since it was in the FNAF 6 location, and that meant that it would have to burn because, you know, that whole thing was meant to just burn off everything having to do with Afton's killing spree, and Withered Bonnie was most likely the one that had the body in it, so having a kid inside would actually be better in this scenario rather than not, which is weird. Others thought that it was just a new animatronic entirely, but I'm here to set the record straight. Rockstar Bonnie is actually a revamped version of the original Bonnie, whatever version that may be, assumingly the version we see in FNAF 1. According to the at time of filming still currently canon fast facts, because they might be deemed uncanon later. An unused text file from FNAF AR reads, Rockstar Bonnie was developed from the original Bonnie for use in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria franchise operations, meaning that Rockstar Bonnie is just the original Bonnie with extra steps. So there you go, a theory combined with fact. Perfect unionization. Penultimately in at number 2, Deep Connection. Now last time I mentioned how Jeremy is the most used name in FNAF history, with multiple different characters having the name over various games. But what if I told you that they may be closer than we thought? Well, the first Jeremy is the one who gets killed by Afton and shoved inside the Bonnie suit. The next Jeremy gets his frontal lobe bitten by an animatronic in FNAF 2 and promoted to day shift. But the third Jeremy is where things get freaky. The third Jeremy was a playtester for FNAF VR, and was the tester before Tape Girl took over. Why did she take over though? Because Jeremy kicked the bucket thanks to being driven mad by Glitch Trap. Okay, so what? Really? I mean, like, why are you saying so what? This guy cut his face off with an office paper cutter, for God's sakes. He literally cut his face off thanks to being driven mad by Glitch Trap, a version of Bonnie, might I add. However, that's not where this connection gets freaky. Who else gets their face removed? Withered Bonnie. Withered Bonnie's whole thing is that he's missing his face. There is no way that is a coincidence, especially when Withered Bonnie shows up in the final pizza party minigame room. Too many Jeremys and too many connections to Bonnie for that to be unintentional. There has to be something there. I hope. Finally, in at number 1, Ship Trap. It's always been a mystery to me why FNAF AR even exists. Not from like a merchandising perspective or anything in our world, but because they're using this surface to try to repair their reputation in their world, but these animatronics are hurting people. Like what the hell? Why? They know about it too. We learned that from the emails. But what irks me the most is that they're shipping out versions of Springtrap. Why? What? Why on earth are you shipping out versions of your infamous killer? We know that people know what he did, as evidenced by the man in room 1280, so why are you doing this willingly? Some people have said it's because they didn't know, they just thought that he was a version of Spring Bonnie, but he's literally called Springtrap in the menu. If they didn't think he was Springtrap, they would have called him Spring Bonnie. The name Springtrap implies that someone was trapped by the spring locks. It makes me so angry. I don't get it. For God's sakes, like, do they want a bad reputation? And at 10, Focus. The game may be called Five Nights at Freddy's, but in reality, is the game about Bonnie? Now this comes from the fact that Scott, while playtesting the game, was actually most scared of Bonnie, since he ended up having nightmares about the character. I mean, this is no secret. Freddy was also originally not going to move from the center stage, only scaring the player if they ran out of power. So the only animatronics you'd really have to deal with would have been Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Golden Freddy. And every character other than Bonnie has some form of area or mechanic that makes them invisible, at least for a time. Chica can go into the kitchen, Foxy doesn't come out unless you forget to check on him, and Golden Freddy is a rare occurrence, and that only really happens towards the other nights. So the only real consistency is Bonnie. And if Scott considered Bonnie the scariest animatronic and wanted the game to be scary, it would make sense if Bonnie ended up becoming the main focus. And at Nights At Freddy look alike. There are some FNAF community members who have seemed to think that Bonnie looks awfully similar to Freddy, and it's something I picked up on as well during my analysis of the FNAF 3 bad ending, link to that up in the top right corner. Their facial structure is relatively similar, especially when compared to Chica or Foxy, so why could this be? Well, it comes from FNAF 2. The withered animatronics are meant to be the original ones, however, Bonnie is missing their face. It's believed that when FNAF 2 ends and the toy animatronics are scrapped, that they repair the originals, which is true. But since Bonnie is missing his face, they use a Freddy face as a form of template to recreate the original Bonnie. So that's why Bonnie may have some features that looks the same or has an essence of Freddy. I mean, it could absolutely be what happened, given that the toy version of Bonnie is so different from the original, but I mean, it's probably just similar because it's a video game model, or because, you know, they were made by the same guy. That would also make a lot of sense. And it ate Funtime Bonnie. When Sister Location came along and the Funtime animatronics were introduced, we had a lot to say about some of our missing lineup. The main one being Chica. But while there was no Funtime Bonnie per se, we did get a hand puppet version of Bonnie called Bon Bon. But who are we kidding? That's not good enough. But luckily the source code of Scott's website, scottgames.com, came in clutch and provided us with a potential explanation as to where our furry little wouldn't be furry in this context friend had gone. He was rented out. In the source code, theorists found the phrase Chica's Party World in a slightly abbreviated form, which led us to the conclusion that Funtime Chica had been rented out to her own themed restaurant called Chica's Party World, and this caused us to draw similar conclusions for Bonnie, perhaps not being rented out to a specific restaurant or location, but possibly for a birthday or some other event. While we didn't see them mentioned, it's still nice to think that Bonnie was still alive. That or William just didn't have enough combined remnant metal to make another animatronic. And it's 7 Glamrock Bonnie. While we did originally wonder where Funtime Bonnie had gone, now we are left asking where Glamrock Bonnie is. With all the trailers for Security Breach, the only version of Bonnie that we've seen is one that has their face plastered in a bowling alley. Other than that, we see no sign of not only a Glamrock Bonnie, but really any Bonnie animatronic in the newest Fazbear game. Like, what? Why? How can there be no Bonnie? Are they trying to cut back on the scare factor so they cut out the one who Scott thought was the scariest, or are they trying to cut back on the ships? Because I'd understand that. I mean, like I already mentioned in a previous video how Roxy is basically a hybrid of Foxy and Bonnie, so I mean, like, if you're trying to cut back on the ships, that's not helping. Also, where's Foxy? I guess it's probably for merchandise reasons, because let's be honest, even I wouldn't want a full wall of Funko Pops that are just the same animatronics but in different forms. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, it would be cool to have some of my favorites like Grim Foxy or Dreadbear, but if it's just Foxy, Bonnie, Chica, and Freddy over and over, it would get a little boring. So I get why they're introducing more characters. Gotta get that Cash Monet. Why do you think we talk about FNAF so much? And at 6, Chocolate Bonnie. Chocolate Bonnie is certainly one of the more interesting animatronics added by the AR game Special Delivery. It's funny, because I made a whole list about animatronics that would taste good and this was just a gimme. But why is this a thing? Like, sure, it was for Valentine's Day or Easter or whatever, but like, what is the in-universe reason for these animatronics? Like, Chocolate Bonnie literally has a whole chunk taken out of him and has candy buttons and sprinkles like those cosmic brownies. Like, what compelled the Fazbear Entertainment Company in-universe to create an animatronic out of chocolate? Like, even the endoskeleton is chocolate. I feel like this was like a joke pitch from someone that like they gave at a meeting to try to illustrate how ridiculous they would go, and someone took it seriously. Like when I jokingly suggested top 10 scary old town roads and they actually made it on Most Amazing Top 10. I think that was me. I know I made some ridiculous suggestion that I thought that they would take as a joke and then they actually made it. And that's like the most ridiculous video that I can think of off the top of my head. So I feel like that was me. I feel like that's it. but it's been so long that I've forgotten. I feel like Liam was like, oh yeah, the Lil Nas X, and I was like, top 10 scary old town roads, and he's like, yes. I said, no. Halfway through in at number 5, Shadow Bonnie. Shadow Bonnie has been in the game since FNAF 2 and has even been one of the most recurring characters, making his way all the way into FNAF AR. But who is this mysterious pitch black rabbit animatronic? The most popular theory is that they are some form of Springlock victim that wasn't able to possess the suit for one reason or another, so instead their agony manifests into a pitch black cloud of pain shaped to look like the thing that killed them. And that's pretty haunting in and of itself. But what the heck is going on with the fact that it looks like Toy Bonnie? Toy Bonnie isn't a Springlock suit, it's just a pure animatronic, so why would the agony manifest into looking like a non-Springlock suit if they were killed by a Springlock version? Why not possess the golden Bonnie suit so William couldn't end up using it? And why does looking at this animatronic for too long cause your game to crash? There are only 3 animatronics that I know of that cause this, and 2 out of the 3 of them are both variations of Freddy. Golden Freddy and Nightmare, so what gives? In at 4, Nightmare Bonnie. The Nightmare animatronics are the center of quite a few theories, thanks to the confusion FNAF 4 caused in the community. However, while we could discuss why the animatronics have stomach mouths or why they're all torn up, since the stomach mouths are most likely because of Elizabeth getting scooped and being torn just makes them look scarier, I wanted to ask why Nightmare Bonnie looks the most tame out of all the Nightmare animatronics. Like, seriously, when I look at them, I find Bonnie to be the least scary. The others have at least one thing that really sets them apart usually, especially Nightmare, but Nightmare Bonnie seems the most generic, and I have a theory as to why. When talking about Bonnie, it's impossible not to mention how he gave Scott nightmares while testing the first game, like I said earlier. In a way, this version of Bonnie is how Scott always saw him, but I believe in an effort to make the Nightmare Bonnie less horrifying for him, he made the most basic Nightmare animatronic that he could, so he could still play test the game without having nightmares again. Or because he made Nightmare Bonnie first and then added stuff to the other ones to make them more unique, or make them different, aside from the fact that they're all different animatronics. You get what I mean. Getting close to the end in number 3, Twisted Bonnie. The twisted animatronics are something we have yet to see in game, and that's probably going to stay that way, as a way to differentiate the books from the games, at least in a sense, other than them being books and games. However, what if this isn't the case and we've already seen the twisted animatronics? It's entirely possible. The whole concept that the twisted animatronics run off is that they twist reality. They twist what you see using discs that emit high frequency sounds, so you see what you'd like to see rather than what they actually look like, sort of an eye of the beholder thing, or they just have a fixed thing of what you see other than their actual appearance. Either way, we've seen something similar or potentially similar in Sister Location, located on Funtime Freddy's chest. The game calls this his power module, but if it powers the whole animatronic, why is it so easily removable and not plugged into anything? This led fans to conclude that this was our first look at these sound illusion discs, and that the Funtimes may be using them to conceal their real form, the twisted animatronics. It would make sense given that their endoskeletons are made of remnant of all 5 of the original victims, the missing children from the missing children's incident, and if that's the case, where is Twisted Bonnie? If there is no Funtime Bonnie, is it someone else? Someone like Ballora or Baby? Or is there an animatronic that we missed that is still out for our blood? And ultimately in at number 2, more shadows. Now I've discussed Shadow Bonnie earlier on this list, giving ideas as to how he ended up being created, but there's actually a theory that there are 2 Shadow Bonnies. The ones we see in the games, like FNAF AR and FNAF 2, but also the ones we see in the mini-games of FNAF 3, since the one in the mini-games appears to be more like the Yellow Spring Bonnie suit that we can also see in those mini-games. Whereas the previous Shadow Bonnie is very much based on Toy Bonnie, which only goes to further add to the whole Springlock victim theory, since FNAF 3, where this minigame version appears, is heavily focused on Springtrap and the spring locking that caused him to become Springtrap in the first place. Then again, this theory wasn't really prominent until the release of FNAF 3, when we learned of an unfortunate incident at the Sister Location involving multiple and simultaneous Springlock failures, so yeah. But it's still a theory. A Shadow Animatronics theory! Thanks for watching! But don't leave, I still have number 1. Finally, in at number 1, Jeremy. This is all but confirmed at this point, being considered canon by many, and by many I mean basically everyone. However, it's still technically a theory until Scott actually 100% confirms it. So, who is the one possessing Bonnie? Most assume it to be a kid named Jeremy. Why, you ask? Well, thanks to FNAF 3 and FNAF 6. FNAF 3's endings feature the heads of the original 4 or 5 animatronics, laying on the ground with lights either on or off. I mean, like, those are really the only 2 options. However, the placement of the heads is something to take note of, since in the FNAF 6 Lorekeeper ending featuring the gravestone picture, it also has a similar placement to the heads, with one remaining mysterious and away from the others, this one being Cassidy's grave behind the grass, relating to Golden Freddy's head in the back of the FNAF 3 Bad ending. The other graves go as follows: Gabriel, Fritz, Susie, and Jeremy, and the animatronic heads go Freddy, Foxy, Chica, and Bonnie, which kind of annoys me, since the most common way I've heard the animatronics listed off is Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, Chica. I mean, like, it's just like a slight OCD moment, because it just sounds right, you know? Like, it's long, then short, then long, then short, and then the B and C's are in proper order, but the F's are more abundant, and that's why they're at the front. Okay, I'll stop talking now.